confirm the audio is okay. Great. Self in the camera. Once again, welcome to today's seminar. Good to see all of you in person as well as people online. So before we hand over the microphone to Dr. William Hall, please allow me to take 4 to 5 minutes to introduce our organization. Our organization is the Chinese Institute of Engineers. You haven't counted is one of our media channels. You will be updated on the following events. Chinese Institute of Engineers in the USA was founded in 1977 by few very early students in China. So Chen Qingyu and Liu were the early founders. And today, the organization has grown into a larger scale. We have different chapters represent different regions in the States. For example, Greater New York, we are in the business area. Chapters in Seattle, in Dallas, in Mexico, and Southern California. And we also have a few additional branches in the organization, like BTS, the Modern Engineer and Technology Seminar, also CHATEC, the Sino-American Technology Engineer Conference, and also an Asian American Engineer of the Year award that held every year. Speaking to our local area chapter, was founded 43 years ago in 1979, and we are a non-profit organization aimed to serve the larger community of engineers, scientists, professionals, and students in the Bay Area. Our mission is to promote the technological achievement, support networking among members, to foster the engineering culture among the different so you can see some photos from the early events. We held our second annual conference in 1981, and also after photo in the middle from 20th and also the 40th one 3 years ago. Later on, I will introduce our annual conference for this year, which is scheduled to happen on April 22nd, Saturday, and yeah, I will try to speak to the microphone that people in this room. Okay, so in 2020 and 2021, we held the AEOY Asian American Engineer of the Year conference. And I believe this was a pure virtual event. And also, since pandemic, we have moved our events to online. We mainly use Zoom, same time. So also we have we post all the seminar videos they watch So we have been trying to learn how to adapt ourselves to this special series. Recently, we have shipped back to in-person events like today, hybrid. So today is a hybrid event. And last year, we held our annual conference also in Santa Clara. And the theme was Beyond Breakthrough. We invited really heavy speakers to the event, and we also provided a banquet dinner for about 250 people. Look at that. Currently, my microphone is speak louder and directly to the microphone. We have a large group of volunteers that really help organize events and make sure event listening. So we also look forward that maybe one of you volunteer for our next time presentation. Okay, here the annual conference theme is connectivity for this year, and this will be the 106th year. Like I mentioned, the event is taking place on April 22nd afternoon at the Santa Clara Convention Center. So we expect around 300 people to attend this program. So in the afternoon, we will have a technology session program that we invite 4 speakers, and each speaker with a 1-hour talk, including Q&A time. Actually, one section will be a panel talk with multiple guests. So if you're interested, you can check the registration link on event. And to take the opportunity to thank our sponsors, and these are also our partners. We co-organize events all the time. And just to, if you are new to our chapter, so in addition to technology seminars, talks, we also organize some other events that tend to broad fields if you are interested. Some of in art, movies, novels. And this represents a program we held almost every year. Almost every week, the coding study group meeting. So we started with in-person, but we moved to Zoom meeting during the pandemic, and this coding study group. So we each time we invite a speaker that is provide some teaching, coaching, instruction, of some coding problems together. Also, we'll hope to invite people who found jobs and to give some advice on job hunting. Okay, and just to show that our mission is to bring positive impact to the Taiwanese and Chinese Americans. We need to have a variety of events, activities, and today, so Dr. William Paul representing the Emerging Technology Group, and I myself represent the Electronic Design Technology Group. So these are the subgroups within our chapter. So different groups will have also different events. Okay. So today's topic is next generation artificial intelligence. I believe buzzwords like chatGPT and AI language model so popular these days. Introduce Dr. William Paul with one last slide here. Dr. William Paul received education to the PhD from the University of Illinois. He worked in semiconductor and the electronic design automation industry for more than 30 years. He has achieved many high-level and management positions at big names. He has co-authored 40 technical papers in IT media at IEEE, 8 design patents in software and IT. He was adjunct professor at UCLA's PE department, a senior member of IEEE, one of the founding members of IEEE, Circus and Silicon Valley. He currently teaches clean technology and emerging technology at the University of California, Silicon Valley Institute. He has given more than 90, now published 100 seminars in the past 10 years on various technologies, topics, and fields. Last but not the least, technology watcher, learner, and teacher. So let's welcome this speaker, Dr. William Paul. So I had some issue with my microphone. That's okay.
Okay, can everyone hear me online? Okay, very good. So
when seeing this,
Hmm?
online people,
they're seeing this?
yeah.
How do I get on with this? Okay,
Okay,
Right.
yeah, now it's right. Yeah, okay.
okay, so
Do you want to turn on your camera?
oh,
Check your
Okay.
position. Is this okay for you?
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
So for most of the presentation, don't watch me on screen. Just watch the slides, right? Okay, but you can hear my voice. So again, welcome to tonight's seminar. We're going to be talking about next generation AI. So let me. Okay, so this is the agenda for this evening's talk. I guess lately everybody has been hearing a lot about ChatGPT, hearing about all the advances in AI. So I'm going to start by giving a quick introduction to the topic on AI and what's really coming down right now in the next 3 to 5 years. We'll cover 5 different AI techniques. First one is unsupervised learning. Second one is called federated learning. Third one is edge AI. You know, everybody's aware between the cloud and the edge, right? The difference between the two. There's more and more applications that are on the edge, such as, for instance, self-driving cars. Okay. So, and then the 4th and 5th technologies I'll be covering. The 4th and 5th are generative AI, which is really the latest. One of them is a generative alternative networks called GANs. And right now, the ChatGPT belongs to the family of transformers. Okay, so these are the 5 topics related to AI that I'll be covering today. Next thing, we'll discuss a little bit about data. Okay, everybody knows that right now we're living in the era of data. The data is called the new oil. Okay, so everything is data dependent. So when we start using ChatGPT and some of the AI tools, it requires a lot of data for training. Okay, so how do we obtain the data? Sometimes the training data is insufficient. So sometimes we have to recur to synthesized data. That's man-made data, okay? The other thing that it causes a problem is that right now everybody cannot tell what's real and what's fake. Okay, so we'll talk about synthesized data and also deep fakes, okay, which is the negative side of generated data. And then the last third of the talk will be covering what probably everybody, most of you in the room are actually, the reason why you are interested in the topic is because ChatGPT. So we'll be covering about conversational AI, also called chatbots, which stands for chat robots, robots that talk, okay? We'll be covering ChatGPT. All this presentation that I'm presenting today is up to noon today, because just Monday of this week, ChatGPT 4 was released. So you'll be hearing about ChatGPT 4 today also. So you'll be hearing all the latest, okay? And then what's beyond GPT-4? So new developments beyond GPT-4, what are they? Okay. Now, whenever we use tools like ChatGPT, one of the crucial components is that how do you interact with the machine? So that's called prompting. Prompting is the way that you communicate with the machine. And it's actually it's a science right now. So just like people attend electrical engineering, you know, aeronautical, chemical engineering, now there's a new thing called prompt engineering. It's that how do you optimize your interaction so you can get the most out of the chat tool? So that's the importance of prompt engineering. Right now, everybody watching the news knows that there's a very stiff competition between Microsoft, which is using the ChatGPT, and Google, which used to have 90% of the search market. Okay, so now they are coming with their version of ChatGPT called Bard. So the competition between the two, also be covering that. Okay, and then we'll do a wrap up with a summary and the conclusion. Okay, so this is the agenda for tonight's talk. So let me just give a quick introduction to the subject. So everybody is aware that not only AI, but technology in general is moving so fast that things that used to take 5 to 10 years, right now, everything is really coming to fruition in about 2 years or less, okay? So right now, when we say, what's the next plan? It used to be 5 years and 10-year plan. Now it's like 2-year plan because we cannot wait for 3 years. The technology actually has surpassed our expectations. So things that we were expecting in 3 years is actually happening in less than 2 years. Okay, so we need to have a reset in terms of expectations. Everything is moving much faster than we anticipated. So things that we say, well, we talk about a few technologies and say, well, by the time it happens, it will be 3 years or 5 years from now. We talk about, in the past, we talk about 5G, we talk about nuclear fusion. They're all like 5 to 10 years away, okay? Now the field of AI is the reverse, is that things are moving faster than we expect. So things that we expect in 3 years or 5 years is actually happening much sooner, okay? So, and that's the reason why for tonight's talk, I'm going to talk about 5 of these technologies that tonight may be the first time you hear about it, but in 2 years, maybe you're already using it, okay? The example that everybody is looking at right now is that ChatGPT just came out November 30. That means almost the beginning of December of last year. And right now we're only 3 months and we're already moving from ChatGPT 3.5 to ChatGPT 4. Okay, so in 3 months, there's almost like already the next node. Okay, so that's the introduction. The introduction is, you can summarize this, that things are moving very fast and faster than you can expect. So if you are sort of like a laggard, things will already go way past you, okay? So you need to be aware of what's happening around, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the first type of AI. In the past, most of the AI has been called supervised learning. That means that the people will train the AI tool with the knowledge, and people will have to label all the stuff for the machine, and the machine just processes very fast. But basically, you require a human supervision, okay? And now the next thing that is changing is that we're moving from supervised to unsupervised. Why? Because most of the data actually are new and you cannot prepare ahead of time. Not only that, but the process of labeling the technology is very time consuming. So sometimes you don't have time to label the things, okay? And very often you have new areas that that people are not aware of. So all those needs to be learned, you know, without supervision. So let me give the analogy between the human and the machines. When you have like a new baby, before the baby goes to elementary school or to kindergarten, from the time that they are born to the time they go to school, say 5 years or 6 years old, they are still learning already. Before they go to school, they're already learning. They are already look around, they see cats, they see apples, they see horses, they see airplanes. Now they have not gone to school yet, but they're already learning. Those is what they call an example of unsupervised learning. There's not a teacher, it's not every parent is teaching, okay, well, this is an apple and this is an orange and so on. The kids just by watching and observing is learning. So that's called unsupervised. There's nobody supervising their learning. Okay. So as I said before, in the prior mode, it was called supervised learning. And the supervised learning had the main limitation is that it required a human to label all the data. Second thing is that the process of labeling the data and preparing the data was very time consuming. So that was the bottleneck. The bottleneck was You cannot train the thing fast enough. Okay. So people say, well, we need to go and learn it in a different way, unsupervised way. There are some gurus who call that unsupervised learning. It's called self-learning. It's not, you don't have a teacher, but you're learning by yourself. Okay, just by observing what's around you. Okay, that's called unsupervised learning. So the characteristics are, number one, you do not require a human to provide the guidance. Okay, it does not require you to label the data. Okay, and the way that it works is that you learn about new parts of the system by observing and extrapolating from other things. So the last phrase, unfortunately, this thing is on the way, is that you learn about everything else from other things. Okay, so if you look at a horse versus a cat, you say, well, why is it that the cat has much shorter legs than the horse? Okay, and also the tail of the cat can stand up, but the tail of the horse doesn't stand up. Okay, it just falls down. So you can automatically, the kids already learn that there's a difference between the horse and the cat. Okay, so things that they learn, the way they learn it is just by observing what's around them. Okay, so that's called unsupervised learning. So unsupervised learning, as the analogy that I gave earlier, is very similar to the way that humans learn. Okay. And I don't know, people who are into computer science and into AI, there's the gurus, right? One of the gurus, these are the people who won the Turing Award in the last time. One of them is Yann LeCun. So Yann LeCun, he basically says the next AI revolution will be unsupervised. Okay, because we cannot afford to supervise everything. Okay. So he also coined the term, it's called self-learning. It's not called, sometimes instead of calling unsupervised, it's just called self-learning. Okay, the kid learns by itself and we learn by ourselves. The machine also learns by itself. Okay. So that's the first jump that we're moving from AI, it's moving from supervised learning to unsupervised learning. So in unsupervised learning, basically you start on the left side, you have all the data. So you see all the data points, and you enter it, you input it, and then there's the algorithms that the machine learning performs, and then the output is that everything is sorted. Okay, so apples fall into one bucket, oranges fall under another bucket, bananas fall under another bucket, and it's all done by this. So we'll talk about the ways that this machine learning performs this function. Okay, so how does the algorithms, the thing in the middle, you throw it the input data and out comes everything sorted out, for you. Well, what does the wheels and the things in the middle, what do they turn? When they turning, what are they processing? What are the algorithms? Okay, so here there are three methods of unsupervised learning. One is called clustering. Clustering is, in essence, is like grouping things by category. Okay. Second one is by association. Okay, you have a rule and you say, okay, everything that belongs to this belongs to, just like people say, well, you belong to the Chinese association. That means that, okay, there's a group of people that have very common, similar characteristics than you. So you belong together. Okay, so all the apples fall into one bucket, all the oranges fall into another bucket, the pears fall under a different bucket. So this is by association. And the third one is called dimensionality reduction. So This is actually a term that is applicable more like a matrix theory. I don't know if some of you may have taken a matrix algebra course. Is that when you have a matrix that is n by n, is very large, you try to reduce it, okay, into a smaller matrix, okay? So this is also another very common technology that's happening in the era of big data. So everybody heard about big data. Big data means that there's too much data and you don't know what to do with it. So too much data is not necessarily good. What you need to have is a smaller amount of data that is useful, not large quantities of data. So dimensionality reduction is also trying to reduce and filter the data to a more manageable size. Okay, so these are three ways that inside the machine learning algorithm, they have these three ways of doing this. Now, I'm just saying that there's these three methods. Behind it, there's a lot of math. There's a lot of matrix theory, okay, matrix algebra. There's a lot of vectors, as you will see today in the rest of the presentation. There's a lot of math, okay? But given that everybody has a different background, I'm not trying to go and go over all the matrix theory and all the matrix algebra here, okay? But I will give you the references. So if you're a computer science guy and you say, well, I want to go through the math, I'll give you the papers, okay? All the principal papers. Okay. So that was the first one. The first one is called unsupervised learning. Second one is called federated learning. Okay, when you read the word, what does it tell you? Okay, we live in the US. We have the federal government and you have the state, right? So federated means that there's a branch that is very general on top, but then you have the different states, okay? So in the era of big data, one of the problems is that there's a lot of data, but a lot of us worry about the privacy and the security of the data. You don't want to have your own data being exposed by a machine and say, okay, well, I'm going to use your data, and then it knows that it's from you. So one of the ways to do it is through the federated learning, and I'll explain how does that work, okay? So one way to keep the privacy is through the federated learning. Okay, so let me just show you with one example. So if you look at this picture, in step one, you have the central government on the top. Okay, let me see where I have the pointer here. So you have a central server, and then you have all the different, you can call it a state, you know, if you want to call it, okay? Well, in the real world is that you have, for instance, you have the cloud. The cloud where is all the heavy computing power the servers are, okay? A lot of storage is located, a lot of compute power is located on the cloud. But guess what? What we are dealing with is that you are walking around with your cell phone or you're driving your car, right? So that's your own. So that's called the edge. That's called the device. The cloud is the central repository where the large computers and the large storage is located. But we are the nodes. We're just dealing with our own cell phone or with your own car, okay? But whenever you require large computation or large storage, you go and sometimes put it in the cloud. But what's the problem? The problem is that if you give everything to the government, to the federated thing, then the government knows all your private data. So everything that is on your cell phone, if other people know it, they have your data. Say, oh, well, by the way, Sue's thing is, you know, she has a house located in Fremont, you know, so the thing will know. So how do you keep it secret? Is that you see that in step two, is that, so here are the nodes or the devices. So you keep the data, the central government or the server passes the information to the local information. And the local data does not go into the cloud. It just remains locally. Okay, and it takes the model from the central and it does the thing. And then after it's done, it passes the results back to the federated. So the central transmits the model to the individual devices or the nodes. And all the locally on your device, let's say your phone or your car, you process the data locally without uploading your data to the central location, okay? And when everything is done, then you pass the results of the model back to the federated, okay, to the central, but without distinction where it came from you or from her, okay? So that's the way you keep the privacy. You don't share the data with the central cloud. You do the processing at the local level. And once you do it, then you pass it on to the results of your model back to the central server. But you keep the data private to your own. Okay, so that's what is called federated learning. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about the difference between cloud and edge. The cloud, because not everybody can buy, a lot of GPUs or a lot of very expensive hardware. So a lot of that is sitting in the cloud. Who owns the cloud? Companies like Amazon, right? Google, Microsoft, they own the server farms, okay? They have just rooms and rooms of CPUs and GPUs and all the stuff in there. Now, we cannot afford, individually, we cannot afford to buy so many computers, right? So whenever we need the compute power, we go to the server. Now, for example, everybody owns an email, whether it's a Yahoo or a Google Mail. So guess what? Your storage, you put it into the Google server, okay? You don't put it on your own PC. But then whenever you need something to be done, you go to a server, get the thing done, and then you download it, okay? And all the storage is done by the server, by the cloud, okay? But locally, you at the device level, for example, at the cell phone, you own a cell phone or you own a car. Now, imagine that, let's say when we get to the point where you have driverless cars and the car is driving by itself. So if you need to have a computation and you need to send a message from your car to the cloud and wait for the message to come back from the return from the cloud to the car, your car already ran over somebody because that's called latency. Latency means the time that it takes to respond, okay? By the time you send the message to the cloud and you get the result or the answer back, that's called latency. So the latency is very small. Whenever you are dealing with devices at the edge, like a car or a phone, you can say, well, somebody's trying to steal my password. Or you cannot say, well, let me just go and email to the bank and then wait for the bank to respond to your stuff. Because by that time, somebody already broke into your device, right? So there's more and more computation and storage, not to the larger extent as the cloud, but you still need locally at your device. You need certain amount of computation and certain amount of storage, okay? So the edge, so when we say that AI is moving to the edge, that means that the certain application cannot wait for a long latency. Like for instance, a car needs to react in less than 1 second, in hundreds of thousands of a second. The car is moving, you see somebody stepping down from the sidewalk, he has to step on the brake right away. He cannot say, well, let me send the message to the cloud, wait for the thing. Well, maybe the thing is busy. By the way, that's one thing that I'm experiencing lately when I'm trying to use the ChatGPT. Is that there are too many users. There are right now over 100 million users of ChatGPT. So let's say we apologize that right now we have encountering too busy. So you cannot wait. So if it's a matter of life and death, and your car is running into somebody, where you're running into a person or another car, you cannot wait for it. Okay, so there needs to be a compromise as to what gets done in the cloud and what gets done at the edge or at the device. Okay, so the edge has a couple advantages. One is very short latency, reaction time, and also it keeps the data private. So things that you keep on your phone or in your car is yours. Okay, it's not like you're sharing it with everybody on the cloud. Okay, so when we say AI is moving from the cloud to the edge, is that the AI models need to be smaller and faster. So that's what the difference between the edge and the cloud. Okay, so edge AI means much faster reaction time, and also storage maybe less, but you need to have the data right away. So how do we accomplish with a smaller data set compared to the cloud? As I mentioned in one of the previous slides, it's compressing the data. Is that you cannot deal with so much data. So everything that requires a lot of data and a lot of computation, you give it to the cloud. But locally, you need to have a model that is much smaller and it's compressed. Okay, so in order to make the data smaller and to be able to react faster, you need to compress the data. So that's called neural network compression. Okay. So again, there are 5 methods. I'm going to mention here, I will not dive into the detail because we have a lot of things to cover today, but how do you compress the data? One way is just like, for instance, when you go to, I don't know whether it's a spring or fall, you go and cut your trees. Okay, too many branches, some of them are dead branches and so on, you go and prune them, right? So pruning is one. And why is it pruning? I'll show you later on a neural network, okay? A neural network is like a tree. As a matter of fact, it started with, it's called artificial neural networks, ANN, okay? So you have too many nodes and you have too many branches. You have too many connections. So you have to prune it. Second way to do is quantization, okay? So in order, instead of requiring so many bits for the data, you require a smaller number of bits. Okay, that's quantization. Low rank factorization, as I explained, is more like related to the size of your matrix. Okay, you factor it so that you do a sub-matrix instead of using the whole big matrix. Because very often the big matrix is very sparse. That means that in the matrix, the non-zero entries are very small. They're only probably about 10–20% of the entries in the matrix are non-zero. Everything else is zero. So why do you carry all the zeros? Why don't you reduce the matrix? Okay. The other thing is convolutional filters. Okay, again, data filtering and knowledge distillation. Okay, distilling the data. Okay, so these are just compression techniques in terms of reducing the amount of data at the edge. Okay. So here, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So when we talk about compressing and reducing, you look at the left side, before pruning, you have, okay, all the circles are the neurons. Because as I said, people finally decide to, in AI or machine learning, try to copy the human brain. And the human brain is made of neurons and synapses. Okay, so people, when you do the machine learning, they use the ANN, artificial neural networks. So for each of the circles, it's like a node. And between the nodes, you have connections. Okay, so pruning means that you cut down on the number of neurons or the nodes, and you also cut down on the number of branches, the branches that go between each neuron to other neurons. Okay, you try to reduce that. So that's what pruning is. So you on the left side, you have a busy, very busy artificial neural network. And after pruning, you cut down the number of neurons, you cut down the number of connections. Okay, because not every connection is important. Okay, as a matter of fact, later on, there's another technique. You know, everybody says that in the human brain, I don't know which side is which. You know, the people say, well, the left side is more rational, and then the other one is more, you know, emotional. So even on the human brain, not all the neurons or not all the things are the same. There are certain neurons that are used for certain functions, and then there are other ones that are used for other ones. So do you need to trigger all the neurons in your brain? No. You have to go and say, well, I'm trying to solve a romantic thing. So I don't need to go and bother the other side of the brain that's more rational, whatever, right? So you specialize, okay? So you can trim down on the number of networks. Why? Because you know that when we talk about the ChatGPT and all that stuff, you'll be amazed how much time does it take to train the machine. It takes years and years to train the data. So if your model is too complex with too many neurons and too many connections, it can take forever. Okay, so you need to cut down the size of the problem you're trying to deal with. Okay. Okay, so we talk about three of them. The last two are called the ones that are right now they are hot. It's called generative AI. Okay, so there are two of them that we'll be going over today. Well, one is called GANs and one that is called transformers. Okay, so we'll go over each of them. But the reason why it's called generative AI is that before, when we started with AI, people say, the machine is just getting the instructions from the humans, but the machines, they do not require sleep and they can do computation much faster than the humans. Okay, but people always criticize the AI, saying it's not creative enough. It's not as creative as a human. The machine, the AI is just does it faster. Okay, because just like, for instance, instead, if you do some math and you have a calculator, you use the calculator. You're not going to do it, you know, pencil on paper, right? Just because there are certain advantages of the machine. So AI and the human brain was the same. People say, well, the machine can do things much faster than the human brain, but maybe it cannot draw an artistic picture as good as a human. So the creative part was the one that was lagging before, okay? But now with generative AI, that's beginning to change. Because now the machine is moving from just something that collects the data and does a very quick computation to something that can create something new. That's why it's called generative. It can generate new ideas and new results. It's not just taking instruction from the human and doing it faster. Okay, so that's called generative AI. So there are two types of generative AI. One is called generative adversarial network, GAN, called GANs. Okay, so the way that the GANs work is that there are two engines running in parallel. One is called the generator, just like the name says, it generates data. And then the other one is called discriminator. Discriminator is the one that makes the call. Okay, so the generator keeps generating data. Remember that I mentioned about synthetic data? One is data is natural data, comes from all around us. The other one is called machine generated data. So very often, in order to train the model, there's insufficient data out there. Because let's say you deal with something new. Well, there's not insufficient data all around it in terms of real data. There's not enough. So you need to have a machine to generate data. Let me just give you an example. So people, when we train the AI tool to distinguish between a cat and a horse. Okay, so you feed 1,000 or 10,000 pictures of a cat. Okay, and then you're feeding another 2,000 or 5,000 pictures of a horse and say, well, can you tell the difference between the two? Okay, well, very often if you do not have a very large database, you don't have enough pictures of it, especially something that is new. You don't have the pictures. Okay, so you need to artificially generate it. And that's what the generator does. Generator looks at the real thing and tries to imitate what's in the real picture. And it creates synthetic data. It creates artificial data. And then it passes that data to the discriminator. The other part of the engine says, well, I can tell where this is the fake data, a machine generated data versus the real data. So that's the function of the generator, is to generate data. The discriminator is to tell it's real data versus machine generated data. And it keeps iterating between the two, okay? The more you iterate, the generator gets better and better. So it creates data that is very almost indistinguishable from the real data. When you reach that point, then you say, okay, well, I have enough artificially created data to supplement the real data. Okay, so this is in a picture form, the way that GAN works. Okay, so you have real world images, okay, on the upper left corner. These are the real thing, pictures or photos of the real thing. And then you have the generator, which is generating artificial data, artificial images of the thing that you're trying to control. And then you feed both the real data and the AI data to the discriminator. And the discriminator says, this is real, this is fake. This is real, this is fake. Okay. And the generator gets better and better. And whenever it cannot no longer distinguish between the two, then you have a lot of data now that has been created. Okay. And you're trying to minimize it. And then you try to minimize the loss, or the way that the difference between the real and the fake. So this is the way that the GANs work. It's why it's called adversarial, because you are competing the machine generated data with the real data. So that's like, and then one is creating data for the other one to distinguish, okay? So it's two machines competing against each other. That's why it's called like an adversarial. Okay. Now let's go to talk about transformers. So the ChatGPT that everybody is right now immersed into is a class of transformers. Okay, and we'll explain why it's called transformer. There's a lot of transformers. I don't know where your kid plays with transformers, like converts a robot to a car or a robot to a plane, right? That's also transformers. It's sort of like a Lego thing, but you can transform the thing, right? So the way the transformers work is that, and I'll give you the formal paper. So if you're interested in knowing all the math, you can go and look at it yourself. But the way that the basic concept in a transformer is called the attention. What does attention mean? Just like in a word, say, okay, well, you're falling asleep, wake up. Calling attention means that whenever in ChatGPT, you start with a prompt, you say, okay, tell me the story of Pinocchio. Okay, well, the word is story, there's the Pinocchio and so on. So from there, the chat tool will create the response based on the words that you put into the chat tool. Okay, but in the sentence that you provide in your prompt, there are some words that are like articles. They're not that important. There are some that are really important because you say, tell me the story of Pinocchio. Well, Pinocchio is important because it's not the story of Snow White, for example, right? And you're asking to tell the story rather than write an essay on Pinocchio, okay? So there are certain words that are key, and attention means that in the sentence that you supply as a prompt, it tells what are the key words. Okay, and pay special attention to those words. That's what attention means, okay? Now, before the transformers came about, the previous technology was called RNN. Remember I used the word ANN, artificial neural networks? Well, RNN stands for recursive neural networks. Why recursive? Recursive means that keeps going in a cycle, in a loop. It's because you have to remember things in the past. Okay. So the thing is keep iterating. It's like a cycle. Okay. Now the RNNs are very slow. Okay, because it has very short memory. So by the time you get to the last word of the sentence, you already forgot what's in the rest of the sentence. And why RNNs are slow is because they process all the words in a sentence or all the data in a serial way. You do it the first word, then you go to the second word, then the third word, the fourth word. If you give it like an essay, like a very long paragraph, imagine how long does it take to process all the words in the paragraph. Okay, now transformers, they do it much smarter. They say, okay, well, you give me 50 words, right? Well, instead of doing one by one from the number 1 to the 50th word, I'm going to do it 25 words at a time. You do it in parallel. So 50 words, if you do it 25 at a time, it only requires only 2 passes. Before, if you do it serially, it will take 50 times longer. So it's converting from a serial to a parallel approach. You process simultaneously. Okay, so that's what the transformers key function is. So for people who are really into the computer science and really want to know the algorithms, this is the paper that was written in 2017. Right now, we're only 2022. Imagine that. The first time that this paper appeared, called Attention is All You Need, it was a paper written by Google Brain. It was a research laboratory inside Google. It was only written 5 years ago. And today, we already have the tool. Forget about all the math. You already have a tool that can work today. So all the transformers are based on this paper. This is the original paper that started everything. And it started only in 2017. We're only 2023. So that's only 5 years ago. Okay. Now, what you see on the right-hand side is called the architecture of the transformer. Okay. Without getting into all the blocks into the architecture, there are basically 2 parts of it. Just like, for instance, in the GANs, there's the generator and the discriminator. Well, in the transformer, there's the encoder and there's the decoder. So the encoder, it takes the input from the user. Say, tell me the story of Pinocchio. Okay, say, oh, okay, 6 words. Okay, let me process all that 6 word. And then, by the way, what the chat does, what it's doing is the following. It takes all the words that you have given to the tool, and it is trying to find, just like a search, it's trying to find the next word that will fit in with the previous six words that you have given. Okay, so that's the way that, by the way, all the essays and all the things that the ChatGPT creates is working on that principle. When you tell it, give me a 300-word paragraph, okay, you give it 6 words, you're trying to create 300, okay? It does it 1 word at a time. Okay, you give it 6 words, okay, what's the best word that will fit with the previous 6? And you put it in, and then the 7th, 8th, and it goes to the 300. That's the way it does it. Okay, so the algorithm is basically saying, what's the next word in all the vocabulary or in all the database? Because let's say you're asking about the story of Pinocchio. It's like a children's storybook, okay? So you go and find everything that you can find about Pinocchio, okay, from all the literature, from all the children's books. And it has all of that information in the database because all the machine training has already gone through all the Wikipedia. It has gone, all the books are out there in the public domain. Okay, so in the Wikipedia, there's probably an entry on Pinocchio, right? And it has read all that stuff. And it has probably read 3 other storybooks, children's storybooks on Pinocchio. So from all that database, it finds what's the best word that will fit. If you want to create 7 words, it will give you 7 words. If you create 1,000 words, you'll create 1,000 word paragraph. but it's all built one thing at a time. Okay. So the concept is actually not that complicated. It's a generator of word. Okay. So I was saying on the left side is called the encoder. The encoder takes as input all the words that you have supplied, the user has supplied. And then the right-hand side is called the decoder. The decoder is the one that puts together the output, the response of your tool. Okay, so you say, write me an essay, it will give you write your essay. It's like, give me the story of Pinocchio in 6 bullet points. You put it into that form. Okay, so anyway, so this is the paper for people who really want to go and dig into the mathematics, the matrix theory, and the vector notation and so on. Okay, but I just try to explain it in a ChatGPT for the average person, not for the guy who is like working for a PhD in computer science. Okay. Okay. So given what the transformers can do, what are transformers good at? So if you look at what ChatGPT is good at, it's good at this. It's good at answering questions like, why is it chat? Chat means it's conversation. You and the machine, you're talking, you are dialoguing. Say, tell me about Pinocchio. And then the thing writes out a 2 sentence. So tell me, elaborate, please elaborate on this point because you're not saying more. So you give it more input. The more you prompt it, the more data you create. So that's why it's called a chat. And you will see later on that the way that ChatGPT works is based on supervised learning. Initially, you have all the data that is in the literature, is supervised learning. And then there are what's called reinforcement learning. What the reinforcement learning is that whenever you are prompting the next 2 or 3 sentences to the machine, you say, well, no, that's not correct. When you say that, the machine learns from you, say, oh, this is not the way that this guy wants to find out the thing. Let me change it. So it fine tunes whatever the data they outputted into a better answer. So, and that's the reason why later on we'll talk about prompt engineering. It's crucial how you question, how you query the engine, because the way you interact with the machine is how good your responses are going to get. So the more feedback you give, the better the response you're going to get. So it's an interactive tool. So transformers are good at, for instance, summarizing. For instance, you as a matter of fact, you can do today, what you can do is that if you are lazy and you get an assignment, say, please write me an essay on the Odyssey. Okay. I said, well, I'm not going to read all this Homer, the poetry that was written a long time ago that I don't understand. And it's like 300 pages long. You can give it to ChatGPT and you give you 10 bullets. Oh, the principles are Hector and Achilles, and this is what happened in Troy and all that stuff. And you don't need to read it. Okay, so it's very good at summarizing. Okay, right now you can even get to a point where you can just give the whole article. And if you are lazy, don't want to learn it, read it yourself, you can ask to give me a summary of this text or this essay, and it can do it for you. It's good at summarization. That's called summarization, right? It's good at text generation. That means that write me a poetry using these 10 keywords. I want you to use cloud, ocean, stars, love, hate, and whatever. Okay, and then you create a poetry for you using these words. Okay, so it's very good in text generation. It's good at translating. So for instance, in the examples that they give is translate one sentence in English to a French. Now the grammar between French and English is actually different. The order that you put the words are different, but it's all in the training machine. So it already knows that. Okay, so these are the few items. So if you look at what ChatGPT is good for, all of the other things that you see on this slide are the highlights. Okay, so let me just say a quick word about data. Actually, I need to move very fast because I'm running out of time. So I mentioned that we are living in the data of era of data. And very often you have insufficient data to train the algorithms or the machine learning tools. So sometimes you have to synthesize data. So going very fast is that the other thing that people realize is that how good is the machine learning tool? It's not the number of parameters that it's not the size of the model. So right now we're in the trillion parameters, okay? So the more parameters you give the tool, the more time it's going to take to train the model because there are too many parameters, okay? So people realize that the number of parameters is not as important as the data you feed it. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go faster. So synthetic data, we already mentioned that is a humanly created, artificially created data. But the danger is that sometimes now you have to distinguish between real data and fake data. So if you see a picture, or recently I saw a picture of somebody doing a demonstration in Hong Kong. And people say, well, that photo is actually not real. It's sort of like made up a picture. So you have to be careful right now. We're living in a world where right now it's harder and harder to distinguish between the real data and the fake data. Okay, so let's get into the what ChatGPT and what ChatGPT 4 is. So what's ChatGPT? In this slide, I want to say only that it is a chat tool. That means it's a conversational tool. You as the user, you ask a question, and then the ChatGPT will give you an answer. You're talking to the machine. That's why it's called chat, okay? So we'll explain what GPT and also. So all this, by the way, just happened since November 30 of last year. So we only have month of December, January, February. Right now we're only March, okay? So less than 3 months. Everything that we're talking transpire in this short time. So what does ChatGPT, GPT, what does it stand for? It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So we already talked about what's a generative AI. That means they can create new data. Okay, it's not just taking instructions, but I can create it. So generative means that you can create data. Pre-trained, that means that, remember I mentioned about supervised learning, is that the people who are working at OpenAI, they train the model. They give it all the data from Wikipedia. They give you all the data from all the encyclopedias, all the data from the Classics Illustrated, okay? All of that information. So it's pre-trained, okay? And why it's called transformer is because it uses the encoder decoder architecture. So that's the explanation of what GPT generates new or creates new data, is pre-trained, and it uses transformer architecture. That's what GPT stands for. Okay. So, this tool, why right now is everybody's talking about it. Nowhere you are a machine learning scientist, or you are even in the news. You hear from CNN, you hear from Forbes. Everybody's talking about ChatGPT. Not that everybody is a computer scientist and knows about machine learning. Okay, but why? Because this tool, in 5 days, it reached 1 million users, faster than any other tool, including TikTok and whatever all the other tools are out there, all the social media tools. In 5 days, it generated 1 million users. And in 2 months, it reached 100 million users. So this is how fast, right now, why this is so hot. Okay, so I don't know in the audience how many people have actually used ChatGPT, but for people who have not used it, this is when you log into ChatGPT, this is what you get. Okay, so you have 3 columns, and then at the bottom you have a box. This is called the prompt box. This is where you type in your question. Okay, and in the 3 columns, it gives you examples of how you write a question. Like for example, explain quantum computing. Explain quantum computing to a 10-year-old. Okay, you can try to, you have to ask the tool what its role is. So if you don't understand technology very well, ask it to explain it to a 10-year-old, to a 5th grader. Okay, that's a 10-year-old, a 5th grader. Okay, now if you're know a little bit about it, say, well, try to explain it to a high school kid. Okay, high school kid. Now we're all gone to high school, we all know a certain amount of knowledge. Or if you are even a computer science major or double E major, say, explain it at the college level. By the way, the ChatGPT-4 is already it started about high school, junior high level. And right now it's already at the college level. So the amount of knowledge that it has is already there. So now on the rightmost column, there's a thing called limitations. And one of the limitations that today, I think that today is the most severe limitation up to date, is that right now, if you use ChatGPT and you use the free version, not the ChatGPT-4. ChatGPT-4 is only in the plus version, ChatGPT Plus, okay? And you have to pay like $20 a month, okay? But if you want to use the regular ChatGPT, what's the number one limitation is that all the data, because the ChatGPT 3.5 was trained by no later than December of 2021. So right now we're in 2023. So if you go and ask me, could you recommend me to buy what stocks? Well, sorry, because the stocks are daily, right? If you don't have the internet data from yesterday, your data is not good, okay? So that's the principal limitation today. Now, if you ask in general questions, like general questions, Pinocchio or Odyssey or whatever you want to, quantum mechanics, that's okay. Because it's not dependent on how current the data from the internet is, okay? But if you're looking at something that is current, don't rely on GPT, okay? Okay, so I mentioned that the ChatGPT uses 2 techniques. One is supervised learning. That means that you train the tool with all the data is out there, okay, supervised. You feed it data from Wikipedia and from the encyclopedias and also from the social media, okay? The next thing it uses is called reinforcement learning. So besides the 5 technologies that we cover, there's also another learning called reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is basically, as the word says, it's sort of like a reward and merit, sort of like, I don't know how to say, it's a reward or penalty system, okay? So remember that you start dialoguing with that tool and it gives you an answer. And for example, let me give you one example. So when you use the word bank, the bank has 2 meanings. One is the bank where you put in the money. The other one is the bank of a river. Okay, so let's say you're putting a sentence, say, this guy swam over the river to reach the bank. In that case, the bank refers to a piece of land that is by the water. It's not where you put in the money, right? But if you say, I'm driving to the bank to withdraw some money, well, here you're not talking about the bank in the river, but you're talking about the bank where the money is. Okay, so whenever the tool gives you an answer and it's not the correct one, you need to correct it. That means that you say, no, your answer is not correct. So it takes that input and say, oh, I'm in the wrong path. Okay, so it was a penalty. Say, okay, the guy just told me I'm not on the right path. Okay, so he needs to change it. So it takes, if it's correct, you give it a reward. Say, great, tell me more. That means, okay, that means that you are proving what it's telling you and you're giving it some reward, right? If you say, no, it's not correct, that's a penalty and it will adjust. So reinforcement learning is that a reward and penalty system. So this is the way that in pictorial form. So looking at the data on the left side of the slide is all the data, and then the output is on the right hand side of the data. What goes in the middle, all the wheels start turning. It looks at what you feed back to the tool. It's correct, it's great. Tell me more. Let me say it's a reward. Say no, you're completely wrong. It's not what I'm looking for. Then it's a penalty, and the tool will adjust accordingly. Okay. Okay, so GPT-3, okay, I'm going to go even faster. GPT 3.5. So everything that is free up to now, before this week, GPT-4 came out this week, just on Monday. Okay, 3/13/2023 is when GPT-4 came out. So before, we're all talking about GPT 3.5. And so I'm not going to go into today into the number of parameters. It's just going from one version to the next. You increase the number of the model, you increase the size of the model, so you give more parameters. Okay, you train it more with more data and so on. So naturally, the evolution is that as you go higher in the version, the better it gets. Okay, so that's like a no-brainer. Okay. So by the way, initially why the GPT caused such a furor was because, oh, suddenly you can say, okay, write me the lyrics for this song, and you will do it. Write me a poetry in French, okay, or in Chinese, and you will do it. So something that people cannot do, not the average person. Like I said, at that time when it started, it was about the high school level. But still, when you do something that we are not experts in everything, right? So the tool will still perform better than you. But if you compare against an expert, so for instance, the last lecture that I gave was on nuclear fusion. And somebody from the audience later on wrote me an email saying, Bill, could you explain these three concepts in nuclear fusion? And I said, well, this is a great thing to ask the ChatGPT and see how it does. So I actually passed on all the questions, and it came out wonderfully because it was all the answers were correct. English was probably even better than even mine. So I said, well, I'm very happy. And then I took the answer and then I changed the beginning and the end so that it sounded more like Bill instead of the ChatGPT. And then I said the results back. Okay. So there are many things that you can do very well. Yeah. So that's why people were really amazed. People who are programmers, they are really amazed at the quality of the code they can do. It can actually help you debug your code that you wrote and say, okay, this is not correct. Okay, you correct it. And you will generate code for you. So I've seen some YouTube videos where there are software programs that say 60% or 80% of the work right now is done by ChatGPT. Okay. Okay, now there's one danger here about ChatGPT. This is like ChatGPT is a super confident. Whenever it gives you an answer, it says, I know everything. Okay, so whenever you get the answer from ChatGPT, if you don't know anything about it, you will say, it's just like when you look up in this encyclopedia, whatever is in the encyclopedia is correct. But that's not necessarily true. So that's the main limitation and drawback about ChatGPT. Even when the tool is wrong, it sounds great. It sounds like it's an authoritative. Okay, that's the main danger. Is that you don't fall into a trap. So if you don't know enough about it, don't trust everything that it says because the tool can make mistakes. Okay, so that's the danger. Okay, so this is the CEO from OpenAI. Okay, the company that created ChatGPT, and there's only one thing to catch. Is like the danger is that it is very confident, and sometimes confident and wrong at the same time. So if you yourself cannot discern between what's correct or not, don't trust everything. So that's why even the CEO from OpenAI says, don't trust ChatGPT on a life and death matter. Okay, trust it if you want, if you want to go and do something for fun, but don't trust it if you want to, your life is dependent on it. Okay, so GPT-4 just released Monday. So even as late as today at noon, I was still upgrading all my slides. Okay. So, but GPT-4 is not available for free. So the only people who can access GPT-4 is that if you are in the ChatGPT Plus, that means that every month you have to pay $20. It's not that much, but you know, it's not like ChatGPT where everybody gets it for free. And that's the reason why very often you cannot access the tool because too many users. Okay, say sorry, but right now we're, you know, too many users right now. Okay, so I'm going to go quicker. The main improvement of GPT-4 over 3.5 is that now it can take visual input. Before, it was a purely conversational. You ask the question, they give you an answer. It's a chat, it's a dialogue. Right now, you can show a picture to the ChatGPT-4. Tell me about the picture that you're seeing. Okay. Oh, a dog and a cat fighting. So it will tell you. You can input an image to the tool. And right now, it is not there completely yet. The ideal, when they say ChatGPT-4, is that I'll talk about later. It's called multimodal. Okay. That means that multimodal means that not only text as input, also image, audio, video. Okay. You can enter any of the above, and then the tool can respond to you. So you can play a song and give it to ChatGPT. Tell me about what you're hearing. I'll tell you. Oh, this is a song that was written by, you know, Peter, Paul, and Mary, you know, back in the 1970s. Okay. You can tell you. Okay. Or you can enter later on. You can. So right now it's not there yet completely. Okay. Later on you can enter a video. So you can feed it a movie. And it can tell you all about the movie without you watching. So today, the only thing you can do is that you can give it a book. It's in a text form. And then you can read it for you and you can summarize it for you. But later on, when you go to multimodal, it will be audio, it will be image, and it will be video, moving image. Okay, so just like the other paper, attention is all you need. If you want to read about GPT-4 for people who want to know all the nitty-gritty, there's a GPT-4 technical report written by OpenAI. So you can read all the stuff. If you are lazy and you don't want to read all the technical jargon, you can also watch a YouTube video. It's called GPT-4 Full Breakdown. And the author is called AI Explained. It's actually very well easily understandable. Okay, so you can do either way. You can go to a YouTube or you can go to. That's right. You can say, you copy the entire article to ChatGPT, explain it to a 10-year-old. Okay. Okay. Now, we mentioned in all this process, remember there's a chat. That means that you are talking to the machine. The better you interact with the machine, the better you're going to be, the more happy you're going to be with the response. Okay. So it takes two to tango, right? So if you don't know how to write the questions, ask the right questions, you're going to get garbage answers. Okay. So the thing is that, and by the way, we mentioned about people say, well, isn't this going to kill a lot of jobs? It may. So as a matter of fact, right now, there's already in the web, there are already people advertising for prompt engineering, prompt engineers. Okay. This company is called Anthropic, which is one of the Google subsidiaries. So what is prompt engineering? Just 1 minute explanation. The prompt is the way that you interact with the machine. So you ask the question and the tool will give you an answer. Okay. But it's not as simple as that. So if you have a 5-year-old typing the question to the ChatGPT, you're going to get some gibberish out. Okay, because maybe the kid doesn't even know how to spell the words correctly. Okay. So the more sophisticated you are, the more happy you're going to get from the ChatGPT response. Okay. It takes two people. So I always give you the analogy. When you're trying to play tennis, or ping pong, and you and your opponent are way too far apart, most of the time you spend is picking up the balls because you're not volleying against each other. You're not responding at the same level. Okay, so the ball comes in, you hit it too hard, and the guy goes and picks up the ball because he cannot respond to if you're much better than him or her, right? So the same thing with this. You need to be good yourself in asking the questions. So 3-minute explanation to this. Okay, top 10 tips for do the prompt engineering. Be clear and concise. Correct grammar, not a lot of mistakes. Okay, because if you misspell the word, the tool is going to say, what is this guy talking about? I've never seen this word in the vocabulary. Okay, so of course he cannot answer it, right? Provide the context. For example, it's very useful when you ask the ChatGPT to say, you are an expert in finance. Tell me what I should do, blah, blah, blah. So you are asking the tool to become an expert in a certain area. Okay, or you say, well, you are a fitness instructor. Give me a routine for exercise for me. So you have to tell it at what level you want the tool to be acting. Okay, be specific, avoid jargon and slang. Okay, ask open-ended questions, be polite and respectful. It's just like you're talking to another person. If you start and you start insulting the tool, say you don't know anything, well, the guy's going to come back at you. Okay, so even the way you treat ChatGPT, it's like you would treat a person. The more polite, the more precise your questions, and so on. You are at the good level with the tool, then you're going to get a lot of it. Okay. Use follow-up questions. Remember the reinforcement learning part of it. So besides the first question you ask, you keep interacting with the tool. That's why it's called a chat. It's not just like a search. Before in the search engine, you just type in the question and you walk away. The next time you come back to the tool, it's reset. It doesn't know that 5 minutes ago you asked a question about Pinocchio. Okay, in this tool, as long as you say new chat, everything that you said for the last 30 minutes, you could be talking about Pinocchio. And you remember that all the context is in the context of Pinocchio. So it has memory. Okay. The thing with prompt engineering is that you have to experiment. Okay. So you're also getting new. This is like a new thing for you. So you have to learn. It's not like everybody, the first time you're going to ask the right question the right way. Okay. So give yourself some time to learn it and improve. Okay. Okay. So there's a few things that say, tell the ChatGPT the role. Say, you are an expert. So you are expecting an answer from an expert. Okay. Or you're saying, okay, you're my friend. Okay. So you're going to give me some advice as a friend. Okay. There's another thing that's very, very interesting. It's called the main response. ChatGPT also tends to be very verbose. There are a lot of people, when you ask the question, they act like they know everything. And they keep going and keep going and keep going. Say, just tell me the important part of it. Don't give me the thing in the front and the back. So when I asked the question about nuclear fusion, he gave me all the big introduction and, why nuclear fusion is important and all that stuff. I say, don't tell me that thing. Just tell me the answer to the 3 questions I asked you. So just stick to the main response. Don't give me the flourish thing on the front and the back. Okay. And since it's a chat, it's important for you to communicate with the tool. Say you are on the right track, or that's a good answer. Tell me more. So you are confirming that what you're hearing, you're getting it. It's almost like when there's one of the soft skills, it's the seek to understand, is that you have to understand the tool. And when you do that, tell it that you understand it, okay? And iterate and refine. Okay, very quickly, Microsoft and Google, they are in a contest, right? So before, Google used to own 92% of the search market. Bing 3.4. Okay. Now, Bing suddenly has a partner in ChatGPT and OpenAI. So right now it's sort of like a game of chess. Okay. So Microsoft has OpenAI. It's a company that invented ChatGPT. It has the Office suite, right? And everything. It has Edge. Okay. All the Office tools suite. Google has the search engine. It has a lot of customer base, right? It has Chrome. Google has a lot of money invested in AI. For instance, you probably heard about the AlphaGo thing where the tool beat the best Go player. That's from DeepMind. DeepMind is a AI company based in the UK. Okay, locally you have Google Brain. It's a research group here in Silicon Valley. And then you have Anthropic, which is also a company. So, Google bought a lot of small companies. So Microsoft has invested $10 billion and they own about 49% of the profits. So they got a very good deal. On paper, it sounds like Microsoft gave $10 billion to OpenAI. But what really happened was that OpenAI is using the Microsoft server. So they are paying back all the fees that they incurred to train the model and to answer the question and keep it online. They're paying the fees. So that's like no brainer. You're paying me back anyway. So it's not like I give you $10 billion and I won't see it for 5 years. Every year they're spending money. Every time you run the tool, you're spending money. Okay, so I want to skip this slide. Okay, now, so when Google heard about it, they called it this thing called red alert. So they even called the founders of Google back to say, well, Raul, we're going to have a challenger to our search engine. And if we don't do it right, we're going to lose 90%. It's going to dwindle to 50% of the market. So look at how much advertising money you're losing if you're Google. So they convene all the two founders from Google, right? I say, well, what do we do? Okay, so they come out with, so Google had already been doing a lot of research on AI. As I mentioned, even the paper that the transformer is based actually was written by Google Brain, that outfit. And then they have a lot of DeepMind, which is the tool that they came out with the software that's the AlphaGo, right? So they say, well, we're going to come up with a new tool called BARD. So BARD, they say one of the key things about BARD, which is it jives with the limitations of ChatGPT, is that we can have access directly to the internet. So if you want to know what to buy in stocks, maybe use our tool. Use Bing, Microsoft UI, and use Google and use BARD because it's current. You have access to everything in the internet. It's not dated. So that was because when the 3.5 came out, it was based on the data that was current only until December or September of 2021. So that's actually, if anything, that's the major limitation.
What does Fox stand for?
Let me see where I have it. But we'll come back to it, okay? So my last two slides, and we're done. So I may leave only a very couple minutes for the questions, but I want to give the full presentation. So what's beyond the current thing? What's beyond ChatGPT 4? The ChatGPT 4 we mentioned is that it will have larger models, it will be more accurate, it will be less false, all the data that is false will be less, and so on. But to get multimodal, that means handle text, audio, video, and image, it has to be bidirectional. Okay, for example, if you enter a sound into ChatGPT, wouldn't you like to have the answer also in voice instead of just text? So everything has to go bi-directional. You enter video. Say, well, why don't you give me an answer in video? Maybe I'll see a movie or a YouTube instead of getting the English conversation. Okay, so there's still ways to go, the multimodal. The other one is called human-centric approach. So as we go more and more, so multimodal means just the 4 or 5 things that I mentioned: text, audio, video, image. Okay. Human-centered is that everything right now is centered to the human. What do the people want? Okay. So people don't want just a robot. When people go back home and there's a robot waiting for you, the robot will say, well, how was your day? You will actually try to understand people's emotions. So that's where the direction is going. It's going to be more and more inclined toward the way that a human behaves. Okay, so this is the summary and conclusion. Last slide. So today we cover about 5 or 6 different AI technologies. Okay, we talk about ChatGPT, what's good for. We talk about the importance of prompt engineering. We talk about ChatGPT. There may be a prompt engineering job now. There will be less and less people who actually, some people may lose their job, their old job, and there may be some new jobs are created. Okay. The other thing is that every time you have competition between, say, Google and Microsoft, it's good because competition is actually improves the technology. Okay. There's always a danger. Every time I give a talk on technology, I say, technology is a double-edged sword. It can benefit you a lot. Like for instance, right now, you can do a lot of things that you cannot do before ChatGPT. But there's also always the bad side of it. You're going to get more fraud letters. There are more emails that are made up, that are false. Okay, so you have to be careful also. And what we're looking at next, besides all the multimodal and human-centric, is the coupling of the brain. The ChatGPT is the brain with the body. And how is that done? Is that humanoid? I'm just going to go to the last slide. Is that when you embed the ChatGPT knowledge and know-how into a robot that can actually do something for you, it can lift something for you, or it can do something. So ChatGPT just tells you, it doesn't do anything for you. Okay? So when you embed the ChatGPT brain into an AI robot, not only would the robot be able to answer you in the ChatGPT format, we actually go and it will go and dump the garbage for you. Okay, right? So think about it. That's very key. Okay, so anyway, that's my last slide. I already covered until 8:30. So originally I was going to talk until 8:15 and give you 15 minutes of Q&A. Okay, but I think we still have this room for another 10, 15 minutes. So you still can ask me questions that is still that you want. Okay. Yes.
So how many jobs will be replaced by this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
10 to the 5th.
So people will become no job.
Well, okay. This is an answer that actually people have asked this type of question. Every time there's a new technology, people ask about that question. Okay. So I only know that there will be people who will be losing their jobs. As a matter of fact, if I look myself, I look at what ChatGPT does today, the ones that I'm really most worried are people like the lawyers. Because like right now, you can go and ask ChatGPT, why don't you write me a will? I don't need to go to a lawyer to write me a thing, okay? And the better, and probably the English that the ChatGPT is probably better than the lawyers, okay? And he knows all the items that you want in the will. Right. So there are a lot of things that people would be eventually losing jobs. People who are, for instance, in customer service today. Okay, you ask about a product, and today you have a person who answers the question. Okay, well, our product can do this for you, and this is the way you use and so on. All of that can be done by ChatGPT. You don't need to have a person answering the question because you can train all the information about your product into the customized ChatGPT and you can know everything. And by the way, you can answer it 24 hours a day because the employee needs to go and take a break and the employee falls sick. Well, ChatGPT won't. Okay, so there are definitely jobs that will be lost. Okay, but remember, for everything that is lost, something else is created. So before there was another job called prompt engineer. Okay, now if you want to get the maximum out of the tool, you have to be now really a good prompt engineer. You need to know how to ask the question. So if people come to you and say, well, you know, I really cannot talk to the machine. Can you do it for me? Well, it creates a job for you, right? Okay.
So ChatGPT besides making people lose their jobs, how do you take advantage of this technology to create more jobs?
Yeah.
For example, right? I'm looking for a career change, I say, well, because I don't know anything about ChatGPT.
Right.
Now I'm interested and I want to invest my time and energy into it.
So in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been watching YouTube videos, like 10, 20 videos a day. There are so many YouTube videos. How can you make money with ChatGPT? Okay, now, the thing that this is no different than any other response on any subject matter when you query YouTube. There's so much data there, but there's some good information and there's some garbage. So you have to wade through 10, 15 YouTube videos to find one that really is really good. The other one is just a lot of data, but it's not necessarily good. Okay, now the way I would do it, you know, if you ask Bill, I would do 2 things. One is that I want to be aware of what the tool can do, not only today, but maybe what it can do next year. Okay, so then you ask yourself, oh, is this going to affect my current job? You know, right now, a lot of people, even software engineers say, well, you know, why do they need me to program it? You know, ChatGPT can do a better job and write better code than the software program. Okay. But it is not a general thing. You have to go and answer that question yourself. The way I would do it is that just like any new thing that comes about, be aware of the thing, or there's such a tool now. So if it's going to pose a problem for me, maybe not next month or next year, but maybe 2 years down the road, maybe I'm out of the job. So when you learn a new tool, try to learn some of the new skills. So come to listen to these seminars. So that's the way I would do it. I wouldn't be panicked and say, well, I'm going to be out of the job tomorrow. Okay, because everything takes time to happen. Okay, but 2 things that I'm raising: be aware, because right now the technology is just moving too fast. So when I look at all the, not only about ChatGPT, but DALL-E 2 and then Whisper and also, so you have it can not only draw pictures for you. Okay. So even the artists say, well, why am I going to be drawing? I cannot draw as fast. The tool can draw it in 2 minutes, while it took the other guy 3 months to paint a picture. And then the other thing is that you can keep iterating. So if you don't like the picture that you see, you can say, remove this left side, the black side thing, and then add some new things into it. And you keep iterating. And the thing is, the nice thing about these tools is that it's very reactive. It can improve very fast. Okay, imagine if you're an artist and you just draw a picture and one of your customers say, your picture looks right, but I didn't like the way you draw the sun. Okay, well, if I want to redraw my sun in the oil canvas that I use, it will take me to redo it, right? Because you cannot edit it. But this tool can do it in 1 second. 2 seconds. So, but this is, I wouldn't be too pessimistic about ChatGPT. The thing that I'm telling you today is not necessarily just applicable to ChatGPT. Any technology that comes about in the next few years is going to be very fast. So I was talking to my friend coming here, say, well, are you thinking about changing your car? Say, well, I decided to postpone the decision because right now I don't know where I want to go and buy an EV that can self burn out. Okay, because right now the lithium battery still can, catch fire. Or should I just wait? Well, I'm not sure where I want to buy a hybrid. Maybe I want to just wait a little bit. So sometimes it's better not to react too fast. Don't say tomorrow, don't walk out of this room and say, well, I need to be a prompt engineer now, okay? So take it calmly, okay? Reassess your own situation, right? Let's say that if you're saying, well, I'm going to be retiring in 2 years, I'm going to just, finish whatever I'm doing right now. By the way, like for instance, in today's talk, when we talk about the search engine and the chat engine, it's not like the chat engine is going to completely 100% replace the search engine. They're going to be coexisting for a while because there are some people who are already accustomed to using the search. And they want to take advantage of the new things that the search was not able to do, okay? But it doesn't mean that now search is no longer. So if you look at whether it's a Bard or Bing, you have now 2 buttons. You have the search button that you can do a search just like the way you used to do. And there's a chat button. So they coexist. Sorry, I couldn't get to your answer about what's Bard, but you can do an acronym. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about myself. I'm just being selfish in this case. I'm a project manager, but I don't have the savvy technology about computer science.
So my immediate answer to you, go and log into ChatGPT and tell your personal situation. I'm so many years old. Okay, right now I'm a project manager. Okay, would I still have a job in 2 years? What would you recommend? What would you recommend me to do? Why don't you ask ChatGPT? Actually, that's what the thing is good for. And nobody knows besides yourself. It's not like you're asking your boss, okay, am I still going to have a job in 2 years? Okay. And if you're not confident with that, go and ask the ChatGPT and also go and ask the Google. See where it gives you a different answer. Yeah.
That's another question we not pursue with my friend. There are many fake news, especially some fake news from those countries. But nobody can care whether they are true or true. And I don't think that ChatGPT will be able to do.
You mean telling real versus fake?
Yeah, because many fake news are in Russia.
Okay, let me just tell you the story about ChatGPT. When ChatGPT first came out, all the school teachers were worried. So, well, now the students are no longer write their own essays. They're just going to ask GPT to write it for them. Okay, then OpenAI came out with a tool, say, I can tell you where this essay was written by a human or written by ChatGPT. And immediately, the day after, there's another tool that says, oh, I can fool you, fool the tool that can detect it. 道高一尺，魔高一丈，就是 for every answer that you seek, there's always a counterbalance. So you have to keep, be careful. So today you don't know, when you read the news, you don't know what's real, what's false. We already being pre-trained by the Trump era, so you say, okay, well, this guy is saying this, so I'm not sure where it's true, but that's what he says.
Example, today people ask, talk about this failure of this Silicon
Valley Bank.
Then
Right.
someone said it's totally federal government problem because they raised too much. That's some expert. I think yesterday, this expert, he said it's total, it's a government's problem. So that means what's
Well, I can tell you Bill Gao's answer. When mainland China decides to go with a zero COVID policy, and then suddenly in December of last year, they say, well, we're going to forget about the zero COVID. The worst thing that can happen is that you lack consistency. There's no such a thing as where this way is right or wrong, because for instance, the way the US dealt with COVID, or the Western world dealt with COVID, and the way that China dealt with COVID, each has its own system. And something that is good for us is not necessarily good for them. But the worst that can happen is that you flip it 180 degrees. So what China did was that say, oh, well, our economy is suffering because we had the zero COVID. So they decided, well, let's forget about the zero COVID. Let's just open up. And then you have so many people who died because of you suddenly open up. So the worst that can happen, don't flip. That's my own advice in anything. So the same thing with the SVB. Before, it was zero interest, right? For all the years during the COVID, you put any money in the bank, 0.01% interest. So that was happening for 2-3 years. Suddenly the Fed says, now we're 3.5%, now we're 4%, 4.5%. That's the same thing that I'm telling you. It flipped. Suddenly it went from nothing to high interest rate. So that's the way, nobody can adjust that fast. So SVB, the thing that they did was they bought a lot of long-term bonds. And then suddenly the interest rate went up. So people say, well, why am I putting the money in SVB? Why don't I take it out and buy my own treasury bill? That's a 4%. That's exactly what. So that's why my answer, that's a Bill Gates answer. So is that there's no right and wrong, but be consistent. Don't suddenly flip. Suddenly it's a no interest rate, and suddenly it's a very high interest rate, and the federal government keeps raising the interest rate. Yeah, another thing that's happening right now. This is not only with COVID, it's not only with the financial sector, with the war. Right now, we're living in the era of turmoil, where today, a few months ago was COVID. Then suddenly it was the Russia-Ukraine war. Then it was the earthquakes. And now it's the atmospheric river, okay? So every day there's something new, okay? So in this era, the best strategy right now is try to stay, the way I was back in the days when I was working, try to stay submerged under the water. Because if you're living on the surface of the water, you're going to be exposed to the high rises and high tides, okay? So if you're submerged, try to get past this period of uncertainty, okay? Yeah.
Thank you for the so amazing talk today. We talk a lot. And I think today, everyone will suffer that there are so many information. So can you teach us something that you can summarize this information?
I'll give you my PowerPoint. You can submit to ChatGPT for a summary. Give me a 5-point summary of Bill's talk. No, actually, everything that I can summarize it for you in 1 minute. Okay. Today, I cover 5 or 6 different technologies. Unsupervised learning. That means that you are dealing with unknown. You don't know things a priori, okay? Unsupervised learning. One is called federated learning. That means that you don't need to go submit everything to the cloud. You keep it at the edge, okay? Then you have the edge AI. Edge means that you don't have the luxury of supercomputers and super storage, but you have to have latency, right? Very fast response. That's the crucial thing. And then the 2 new, the GAN and the transformer. Okay. Now, if you're not a computer scientist, so you're not working in the AI field, you're not like working for Google Brain or whatever, you listen to my talk and say, oh, I heard from Bill, there's this, I heard about reinforcement learning. Why is it called reinforcement learning? Because every time you give feedback to the chat, it has more feedback and you can do better, okay? So that's to the level you need to understand. not everybody here has got like, like I took all the courses in matrix algebra and, complex variable and real analysis, but not everybody is that knowledge in mathematics. And you don't need to know. Let me give you another analogy. Everybody here knows how to drive a car. Okay, so you're using the car as a tool, but does everybody know how to, if the engine fails, you know how to fix it? No. So it doesn't mean that you need to know about all the complex learning methods, as long as you know that there's such a tool that can help you and you know how to use it. That's why I say you need to know how to drive. You need to learn prompt engineering. That's all you need to know. You don't need to know, oh, does this matrix equation multiply to that and you get this thing, and how the convolutional thing works. You don't need to know. Okay, so that's the analogy. Everybody has a car and knows how to drive, but not everybody can be a car mechanic. Okay, and you don't need to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So my question is, how fast do you predict that this technology will spread to every corner of the world? Let me give an example. Like, I think it's kind of like the iPhone 1 time for the ChatGPT.
Right.
And I think it's going to become like iPhone 4 that everybody uses it. So when do you think that everybody will?
Yeah, I have the answer. Because I've been asked that question many times whenever I give another technical talk. There's a corollary. You have, when you do the mathematics, there's the theorem, and there's the action, and there's a corollary. Okay. So, by the way, this statement was made by Bill Gates, so which is people see him as a visionary. So this is what he says. Everything that is in the short term, we are too optimistic. So for example, we've been talking about self-driving cars for 5 years, and they're still not there. Okay, you can only ride Uber in the middle of the night in San Francisco, from 10 to 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, but you cannot run it during the daytime. Okay, so whenever people predict something will happen in 2 years, it will not happen in that short of time. So anything that's short term, people tend to be too optimistic. Don't expect that soon. Always be a little bit more conservative. Say, oh, well, the helmet is going to be here in 2 years. Give it 3 years. On the other side of the coin, people say, oh, 5G and quantum computing, and nuclear fusion is going to be in 10 years, okay, or in 12 years. That is also too pessimistic. It will actually happen before that. So that's the two extremes. And you can put in anything, the XYZ that you are asking. And if next month I give another talk, you're going to ask me, well, when do you predict that thing will happen? My answer is going to be the same. If people are telling you it's going to be here in a very short while, don't believe them. It's going to take a little bit longer. For instance, the self-driving cars, people say, well, there'll be self-driving cars like two years ago, supposed to be already in the road. And right now still, why? Because edge AI is not completely there. 5G is not completely there. You cannot trust the car to stop in time. Because the 5G technology is all the technology in the communications between 2020 and 2030. We're just right now 2023. We're just at the beginning. So you won't have everything in the short while. It's going to take longer for whatever people predict in the short while. And people say, well, this thing, it will not happen until 15 years. Well, maybe in 80 years, it will already be here. So that's the way I would answer. Because I found that those are actually matched with what's happening right now. It's the things that tend to be too pessimistic, that it will not be here for a long time. Actually, it will be happening before you expect it. Just like, for instance, who will predict that in March of 2023, something that got announced only in December 1 of 2022 already be here? And not only that, it's already went to GPT 3.5 to GPT 4. Okay. So without giving a specific answer, you can apply this corollary to anything related to technology. Okay. Any other question? Yeah. So the answer is yes, but you have to do it yourself. So right now, for instance, the GPT 3.5 and GPT 4, they're doing it for the general public. Okay. So that means that, for instance, all the information that is available in Wikipedia is probably already in the GPT. But let's say you are having very special niche product for your own company. Okay. Whatever, it'll be toys for ages, whatever. That nobody, it's not of interest of general interest, right? But it's for you. So number one, you collect your own data. So in the future, these tools will be able to train on proprietary and private data. So let's say you want to go and do something with your own product, and it's a technology that's not of general interest. You can feed in all the things that for instance, I've written several books, but ChatGPT doesn't have the content of my books because I've not fed it into it, right? So later on, you can customize the ChatGPT tool to your own need, to your own application. You put in the data that you have, for instance, the specs of your products and what the thing. And then once you feed in the data, then you can tell me what's a good strategy for what I have. Okay, but you have to first create the database, the knowledge for the tool, because the tool, so the same thing as, guess what? All the people who are working on AI research, the latest and greatest algorithms, they're not there yet. They are still in the MIT lab and they're still in the Google labs because they have not moved from their laboratory to the public domain, and therefore it's not to the tool database. Okay, so as I mentioned before, when I tested the tool, it was, I say, at the college level. And then if I know a certain subject very well, I know that the tool will not match my knowledge. So it is, for instance, at a certain level. So right now, say it's at the college level, which already is pretty good because for most of us who ask about something that we don't know, it's already more than we ourselves know, right? But let's say if I'm an expert in, I don't know, comic books, okay, and then I have a specific question, you may not know all the specifics that I know, okay? So it's not at the expert level yet, okay? And you always lag because even all the knowledge and information, it will take time to get into the machine. Yeah.
So that means, actually, ChatGPT cannot invent, create this, but it's also use up.
That's not true.
That's true.
Okay. So we were talking about scientific type of thing. We're always doing new research and new things. But as I said, right now, the tool is not only generative, it's actually creative. For example, let me give you an example of how creative the thing is. Let's say you want to go and ask the ChatGPT tool to create a picture of this classroom, the way that Pablo Picasso would paint this room, okay? It will collect all the works that Pablo Picasso did, and you look at what the context of this room here, the people sitting here, and you create something out of nothing. Pablo Picasso never painted this room with us in it, okay? So he can create new things, okay? You can even specify, say, paint, this room in the way that Renoir or Rembrandt did. So a guy who is famous for writing, say, Starry Nights, you can say, why do you paint the picture in his style? And that has not been done by anybody. So it is creative, okay? But there's different, creative means a lot of things, two different things. Yeah? Creating can also means to create something from nothing. Before there's no such a thing, and now the tool can do it. For instance, all the image generation right now, draw a picture of an astronaut walking on the moon, and he's walking the dog. Okay, nobody painted a guy walking a dog on the moon, but the thing can paint the picture for you. So that's a new thing. Yeah.
But I'm talking about a drug.
Huh?
Pharmaceutical drug or medical procedure.
Right.
New one.
It's never going to be the leading or bleeding edge. Okay. But guess what? You can, the way that you prompt the tool,
You can help.
you can help.
Yeah.
Like, for example, right now, one of the main things about drugs, you have 50 elements combined with 60 other things. Now, before, the way we do it in the lab is that you try the first one with the third one, the first one with the 50th one, and you do it one by one. And it took you 10 years or more. Right now, everything you say, okay, you entered the 50 parameters on this side, you have entered the 60 parameters on the other side. Why don't you do a simulation for all these combinations? And maybe in a couple of hours, it can produce all the combinations. I will tell you, okay, well, this 10 will probably work. This other ones, forget it. So it can do a lot of filtering for you. So you have to know what the tool is good for.
Yes, thank you. You mentioned today that ChatGPT can give you text output, but cannot actually do things for you, right? For example, if I'm going to ask to write a good email, you can write it for me, but like
You cannot send it for you.
Send it for me. Yeah. How can we train the AI, and what kind of like model would be of AI to train to do actual things for us? For example, send email or book meeting.
That's why the companies are working right now. For instance, Google, and I bet even all the other companies like Microsoft, they're going to find a robot companion to the brain. So when you go and ask GPT to write the email to be sent out, you will be a robot sitting at the desk and then typing the thing for you. So that's why they are trying to marry the two, marrying what the brain power of the human with what our fingers and our, so one is the brain, one is the body. The body is your hands and your feet. It can do walking for you. It can do something that your hands can do. So that's the ultimate thing, is that when you have the ChatGPT brain embedded in a robot that can walk around and do things for you, that's the ultimate thing. Yeah. Because you can come back and say, why don't you clean up all the dishes for me? And then the thing will understand you and will go to the kitchen and will wash all the dishes for you, right?
At least not maybe physically, but you don't need like a robot to write email. It could be like kind of like in computer.
Right. So that's the intermediate step, is that before having the robot actually do it, with the multimodal, that's what they will do. Multimodal is just ChatGPT without the actuator, without the arms and the legs. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So let's say, along the line of what you're saying, the ChatGPT can not only generate but also create new things, right?
Right.
So what happens if I just keep asking the same question? I say, draw me a picture of the castle. Draw me a picture of the castle. Will it always give you the same answer, or it will?
No, in the tool, let's say you go and prompt it and say, draw me a picture of a castle with 10 people and there are 5 people guarding the castle and they're fighting each other. Okay. If you look at it, you can regenerate. You can create a different version of it. So let's say you look at the picture and you don't like it. You can go and click on a button that says regenerate. Then create me a new version of the picture.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm not saying that asking to regenerate. What if I just want to test it? I just keep asking the same question. Draw me a picture of 10 people. Draw me a picture of 10 people.
Okay. Guess what? I ask myself that question. I say, is this really something that I need? So I'm retired, okay? I don't need to make more money. So it says, well, there are 10 different ways of making new money with ChatGPT. And I say, well, do I want to go and create a lot of pictures and then try to put it and sell it? So that part, you have to make the call. Is it worth your time to keep asking the thing to do, keep doing the thing for you? If you don't have a good outlet for that thing, you're not going to make money out of it. Why do you keep asking, say, draw me a picture of a castle? If nobody's interested in castle pictures, you can ask it 100 times, but so what?
What if the next person is asking the same question? I said, okay, draw me a picture of the castle. And she also said, draw me a picture of the
Right.
castle. Will we both get the same answer?
I've not tried, but they have tried using the same question with two different versions, say 3.5 versus 4, or using the Google versus the ChatGPT, and they get different answers.
Of course.
They get
And
different
I
answers,
understand.
right?
But if the exact same question by different people, will you get the exact same answer?
Only if the question and the words that you ask is exactly the same as the other person. But if the word is different, the order of the words is different, or whatever, then you will not get the same. So, yeah, I've not tried it. So I don't know where it'll create the same. Okay. But let me put it more into a more realistic use of what you're asking. Okay. Is immaterial what the tool will create for you. Once it creates it for you, you either like it or you don't like it. Okay. Once you find something that you like it, you save it. So it doesn't matter where it creates the same thing. Okay. So let's say you're in Taiwan and I'm here in the US and we ask the same question. Okay, draw me a picture of a castle with 50 warriors, outside. Okay, so you get a picture, I get a picture. Okay, maybe you ask the question in Chinese, you ask in English, then definitely will be different. Because the way that the thing works, it depends on the order of the words, like I explained. The way that it generates the thing is dependent on that. So, as a matter of fact, another interesting fact. Do you know that, for instance, if you ask, give me a position or opinion about Xi Jinping, okay? So if you ask the question in English, you're going to get the same different answer that you ask the question in Chinese. Because why? Because the data that is out there is that all the people who write good about Xi Jinping is all written in Chinese, okay? And they say the Western media say, oh, well, maybe this guy is too autocratic or whatever. So you may get different. That's why I say one of the limitations of the tool is that the tool could be biased. Because it depends who program, who are the supervisors. When we say supervised learning, who supervise the input, the training data to the tool.
So ChatGPT is basically just is an expert, but it's an expert of one. Even kind of treated as one person. You cannot get a second opinion. Like doctors, right? I'm sick. I ask this doctor, I ask another doctor, I might get different answers.
Okay, so let me answer your question. Okay. So the ChatGPT today is almost like a Wikipedia. You can ask any subject, okay? And it will have a certain level of knowledge. So as I said, 3.5 is more or less about the level of a high school student. And GPT-4 maybe is at the level of a college student, okay? But different subjects, it may have different amount of knowledge because some of them, it may not be in that thing. So it's a completely different new thing. There's no data in the ChatGPT database. Okay. And the other thing is that, remember the importance about prompt engineering. Let's say you're asking a medical question, okay, related to health. If you when you prompt, say, you're a medical doctor, you're telling the tool, you're a medical doctor, okay? Tell me your advice on what I should do regarding my health. And you tell it all your condition. It will tell you as an expert. But if you don't specify that you are a medical doctor, it could be just something, well, if you ask me the ChatGPT tool, it's just like you ask Wikipedia, well, what would the thing? It may just give you an answer that may not be as polished or as knowledgeable. So it's very important for you to qualify what you want ChatGPT role to play.
Last question.
Yeah, so during the industrial revolution, some people are always afraid of portfolio.
Right.
So for example, courses were they were talking about.
Right.
But now it's looking like something's happening that it's already something smart from us.
Yeah.
Do we expect in the future?
Yeah, that's the subject of another talk. That talk is called the singularity point. The singularity point is when the technology runs amok and you can no longer control it. It's like when AI is smarter than all the people, that's when you have a problem because you cannot constrain it.
So how do you see this?
Do you know that OpenAI is a company, it's an institution. You know the reason why OpenAI was created was because all the people like Elon Musk, they were afraid that one day AI will be superior than humans. So people say, we need to be watchful about all the progress about AI. So they created OpenAI. OpenAI was supposed to be like a watchdog for how fast or where it's deviating from what you intended to do. So way back, I don't know where you read science fiction, there's a author called Isaac Asimov. Okay, he wrote the book I, Robot. Okay, there are 3 rules of a robot: never harm a person, never do something against because the robot's supposed to be serving the people, not fighting or endangering people. Yeah. Okay, so we're already like people are trying to get out, they're going home. Right? They're trying to go home to run GPT.
No, just want to say thanks for joining us today to hear Dr. William Gau's insight on the next generation of AI. It's amazing to here's the audience. Yeah, you are right. Oh,
See, already can
show
tell.
the example
So-
generated by. Oh yeah, we have a more AI related topics in our the annual conference next month on April 22nd, which is an in-person event in the Santa Clara Community Center. Yeah, we'll send the registration link to everyone. Yeah, so.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
No problem. Yeah, also we have some fresh sandwiches. Just grab the one you want for your family.
So people want to go have a late night snack.
Thank you.
So we are ended today. So for online, and you can leave. Thank you for joining today.